back, or... Sorry about that. Had to just let Spencer know some things. This is KSSP Podcast. I'm Katie. This is part 2 of the live tonight, I suppose. I wasn't planning on doing this in 2 parts, but I guess that's what my computer wanted. So we're going to be watching a couple of people here, seeing what they have to say, and just saying what we think about it. I hate this. There. Oh, and I hate that once again. I don't know why they have to zoom it like that. Like we're traveling through a wormhole or something. Just to see what Matt Walsh has to say. So this is Matt Walsh reacts to the appearance of TikTok. Yeah. I don't suggest this channel, but hey. Whatever you're into, I suppose.
So we get to look at some viral TikTok videos.
Oh, I knew he was going to be doing this.
We've got a woman talking to her baby and trying to communicate some ideas to the baby that might be over its head a little bit, but I don't know. Let's see.
What? You may not touch my belly button. That's my body, and I don't want you to touch it that way.
I mean, yeah, like... consent is a very simple concept. I don't know why Matt Walsh seems to think it's such a complicated concept. But yeah, I mean, this is consent. Like, you know, she's right. And, like, consent doesn't always have to be in a sexual context. Consent can be in many different contexts. Basically, all human interaction at some point will involve consent of some sort. At some point. No, maybe not all the time, but every person will have to deal with consent.
Yeah, you may touch your own belly button, but I do not want my belly button to be touched, okay? No. Yes, I am in charge of my body, and you are in charge of your body, and right now I don't want my body to be touched on my belly button.
I mean, you people say this is complicated for a child, but... if they understand this kind of stuff from a young age, like as young as being a baby even, like if they're told these things, like, you know, they're eventually going to grow up to understand them as they get older, as they keep getting told this thing, like from when they don't understand it till they reach the age where they do understand it, they'll already have that background kind of ingrained into them. So, and yeah, she's doing very respectful parenting, as she's saying, like...
Yeah, okay, so you can touch your belly button, because that's your body, but I don't want my body to be touched right now. Yes, okay? Oh, really? Do you want your bottle?
Yeah, I'm sure your 6-month-old baby can understand what the hell you're babbling about. I'm sure that's really sinking in. Your lesson about consent is sinking in with your infant child, and also how
the child's not going to be an infant forever, bro.
just weird is it to frame this as a matter of consent? Your baby is touching you, and you're framing that as him.
But that is consent, dude. Like, that literally is consent. Consent is not always in a sexual context, although he probably thinks it is. That's probably how he likes to think about it. If you look into some of the other things he said, does not seem to care about consent either way. So, I mean, this is just not a concept this man understands.
Violating your consent, your baby? That's how you want to, like, see this? That's the sort of the...
Yes. Yes. People need to understand consent. Yes.
The framing, the context we're giving this?
Yes, Mother. Do I have consent to make physical contact with you, Mother?
6-month-old supposed to say that to you. That's what you're...
They're not supposed to say that. They're just supposed to respect your boundary. I mean, and you're not even supposed to respect your boundary. Like, this... it's not good to just raise your kids like and wing it as you go the entire time. I mean, I understand you do have to wing it a lot of the time as a parent, of course, but like that shouldn't be the only plan. Like, I mean, there's certain values that you want to instill into your children, though. Like, you don't want your children to just be like valueless and unempathetic and all this stuff, like hurting other people. Like, no. And the best way to prevent that is from the youngest age you can, just instill into them what consent is. First of all, that's the very first step.
You're expecting. These people are such freaks. Absolute freaks. And I feel so bad for these
they're freaks.
kids.
Okay.
I can only imagine what's going to happen as that child gets older.
As the child gets older, they're going to understand consent. Oh my. He even mentions it and almost connects the dots, but he's not quite there.
Take my kids to protests because I want them to learn to use their privilege for justice.
Okay. So, of course, and keep in mind I am a white woman, but this is a white woman, right? Like, bringing her kids, I'm assuming they're her biological kids. Maybe they're adopted. I wouldn't know. I'm assuming they're biological, though. She's bringing them to protests because let's just say, like, if you were a black parent, you're not going to bring your black kids to a protest. And I mean, you shouldn't even bring your kids to a protest in the first place, in my opinion. Not because they shouldn't be involved in, the advocacy necessarily. And I mean, obviously you shouldn't just drag your kids to protest if they don't want to go either. Like, that's not. First of all, that's just going to instill negative memories of the protests, and if your goal is to have your kids stand up for what they believe in protests, then, like, dragging them to protest when they don't want to go isn't going to help. But the main thing I have an issue with is that even peaceful protests can lead to police violence, and I would not want to, if I had children, I would not want to expose them to that personally. But, hey, I don't know where this woman lives. I don't know how likely of a situation that was going to happen at the specific protest she is at. It just depends what they're protesting and the demographics of the people there.
I let them wear what they want and go to drag queen story hours because...
Okay, that's awesome. Let them wear what they want. For the most part, very good. It also, there's a certain level, there's an extent, but there's an extent to where that goes. But like, if you're buying them all appropriate clothes, they don't, they're just picking out which of their clothes they want to wear that you bought them. That's fine. That's great. Taking them to drag queen story hours, hell yeah, that's awesome too. If you don't take your kids to that, that's fine too. I really don't care, but I think it's cool when people do that. Get to expose their kids a little bit more to, other, like, not even ways of life, just other fun things to do. And also, like, to an extent, because drag shows are probably going to have more queer communities involved. Yeah, to another extent, Not even, because it's not a way of life, it's just the way people are. It's the way people are born. So, like, just exposing them to different kinds of people, I guess you could say. Like, that's great. That's great for kids. That's going to help make the brain more elastic, too. So, very good for childhood development, actually. In my opinion.
Love is love, all humans are valid, and gender is a social construct.
Yes.
I ask if they want hugs because I need them to know that they have consent and control over their...
Yeah, that's awesome. She's doing great so far.
Bodies.
Except for the protest thing.
No means no. I teach them about racism and skin color because they are not too young to learn.
True. Yeah, depends what extent you're doing it to, once again. But if you're doing it in a way that's simple enough they can understand, yeah, that's great. You should be doing that. Because it's going to come up at some point, especially if they're school-age children. Like, that's a good thing to teach them.
I never force them to finish their plates because I want them to have a healthy relationship with food.
That's true. Not finishing your plate. You know what a nutritionist told me that I've always taken to heart? Like, if you're eating food that you don't need for fuel, like, as in, like, after you're full or satisfied with your meal, if you continue eating, that food is just as much of a waste as if you're to throw it away. Because it's just going to get wasted inside of your body instead of in the trash can. So it's better to put it in the trash can. if you need to. Or to save it. Saving is better, but you can't always save it. So, yeah, just some nutritional advice I had from a nutritionist that I really liked.
I have them tell me their feelings by showing me inside-out figurines because sometimes that's easier than putting emotions into words.
That's pretty cool.
And I teach them to love everyone because life is too short for hate.
I mean, that's good. I mean, I don't think you should love everyone. But, like, you should have, you know, at least a baseline respect for everybody. Even if they're terrible people.
I mean, this is becoming it seems like an increasingly popular, at least I'm seeing on social media more and more, this thing about you don't want to force your kid to eat because you want them to have a healthy relationship with food.
Yeah, that's kind of how nutrition goes, buddy. Like, yeah. Finishing your plate is not like when you don't feel the need to is not healthy.
I guess the idea is that if you force your kid to eat, that you're going to cause like eating disorders down the line. No, that's not what it's about. What? There's a few things. Making your kid eat the food that's on their plate.
Eat the food.
It's about teaching them not to be wasteful.
No, I pull up my nutritional quote I just said, buddy. Maybe you haven't heard it, but I mean, it's a pretty simple concept to understand.
Which is a very important skill.
And also, you can just say food as leftovers. Oh my god, most of the time you can save this food as leftovers if you don't even eat it all. That's the part that's really annoying. It's not wasting food to not finish the plate.
You put food on a plate and the kid doesn't eat it, and then you just throw it away. Let me ask you, is that a healthy relationship with food?
It's a healthy relationship with food. Might not be a healthy relationship with your finances, but it is a healthy relationship with food, yes.
Throw good food away when there's starving people out there? Is that a healthy relationship? No, you make them eat it because...
When there's starving people out there, whether you eat the food or not, that starving person isn't going to get food. So, like, why even bring that up? I hate when people say that kind of thing. It just is so dumb.
It is, it's about not being wasteful. It's also about being grateful. Okay, you are...
Just because you don't finish your plate doesn't mean you're not grateful for the food. Like, if you want your kid to show that they're grateful, just have them say, hey, thanks, Mom or Dad, or whoever cooked this food, or picked it up or whatever, thanks for the food. Really appreciate it. It was great. Enjoyed it. I'm full now, so I'm not going to finish it, because I'm trying to have a healthy relationship with food. So... yeah, do what you want with the food, I guess. But I'm not going to finish it because it is just as wasteful to eat food that you don't need to eat as it is to throw it in the trash.
You are providing sustenance to your child. You're making meals for them. You're doing all that. And even though it's your responsibility as a parent, they should still be grateful that you're doing it. And refusing to eat the food is not grateful.
That's not true.
And also because you do have to force your child to engage in proper nutrition because...
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm going to encourage my kid to eat in a balanced way, even if they don't eat all of the food. Like, maybe don't start with the french fries, maybe start with the fruit cup, and then you can have the french fries and the sandwich or whatever you're eating. Like... I mean, yeah, there are other ways to make sure your kid has a balanced diet besides force feeding them.
Because if you let them take the lead, all they're ever going to do is...
Who said anything about letting them take the lead? Like, they're just being intuitive with their own freaking body.
They're just going to be eating pure sugar. Like, if you let your kid decide...
No, because you're giving them the meal. You're still telling them what they need to eat. It's not like you're just saying, hey, go raid the fridge and eat whatever you want. Like, that's a different thing now. It's like you're making a straw man argument, buddy.
A jar of sugar, in your pantry, they will just eat from that. Like sugar and wash it down with soda. That's all they'll eat. Why is that? Because kids don't know what's best for them. Kids will also be hungry, and yet they'll want to refuse to eat anyway. Even, like, they want to eat. And they need to eat, and yet they'll try to refuse anyway because...
Yes, but there are ways to parent around that. Now, I'm not a parenting expert and I don't have kids, but I know for a fact there are other ways to parent around that besides force feeding them.
because they're being defined or because they're in a snit about this or that. Black Rifle Coffee Company is on a mission to build
Oh my god, don't care. Oh my god, how long is this ad? Don't care. Okay, I think I found it. Okay.
Erica's Coffee. Okay, there's one more. This one's kind of seems to be getting passed around on Twitter quite a bit. And this, I believe, is a woman talking about her trans 2-year-old, if I'm not mistaken. Let's watch some of this.
Okay, so first of all, I will say...
because they're...
No.
Is a woman talking about her trans 2-year-old, if I'm not mistaken.
I meant to pause that, I'm sorry.
Watch some of this.
Okay, so first...
Would you mind sharing the process that your youngest child went through to figure out they were a different gender? Okay, yeah, because that's the question on my mind, too. Like, I just want to see what she has to say here.
First of all, I will say that the process, the journey is ongoing and probably will be for potentially her entire life. But here's how it started. So she was designated, assigned, observed male at birth. And until about 18 months, didn't really, know too much, just kind of was raising 2 kids, working full time, not really paying attention to what was going on. And at around 18 months, she started showing signs of like really being interested in things that her sister had and had in her closet, and wanting to play dress up and wanting to put on lip gloss. And when she would see fingernails, she would want her fingernails painted too.
Okay, so here's what I think. It's fine if you think your kid is trans, but I would not start calling them trans until they have a little bit better of a grasp on gender, in my opinion. You can still think it, and like you can observe their behavior, and you can make notes of things for when they get older, so when they do get to that age when you have to take them to the doctor and a psychiatrist and a therapist, and when you do have to go through the very long process of deciding to transition or not, you can get to that point. I wouldn't be making TikToks saying my kid is trans for sure, like I know 100% just because she likes to play dress up and play with girl toys. But I mean, they can, like, maybe they will be trans still, maybe her kid will be trans. We don't know, but let's let her continue.
And we thought it was cute. No issue. We had no issue with her wanting to do those kinds of things. And then around the age of 2, things started to progress at a quicker pace. And so each time that we would go to pick her up from preschool, she was fully outfitted in dresses and jewelry. And so I will say I was super stoked that we had such a wonderful childcare center that she was in, because she was allowed to, experiment with her gender and play dress up.
And I think it's great letting kids experiment with gender and, letting them do things that are outside of their gender norm, or the gender norms correlated with their biological sex. I think experimenting outside of that is a great thing for every child to do if they want to. If they don't want to, that's perfectly fine too. But if they do, it's always good to let them do that. I don't see a problem with that part of it.
And do those kinds of things and have access to them. So when I would go to pick her up from preschool, like I said, she would be dripping in, just jewelry and clicky shoes and all kinds of stuff. And getting her to take that off to go home was usually a pretty gnarly struggle. And then around the age of 4, she started wanting to wear like leggings and headbands. She had this one headband she was completely attached to that she felt, I look back on it now and think to myself, gosh, I wonder when she put that headband on, she thought to herself, people see me for who I am. No one's going to misgender me now. And so it progressed. It just kept moving in that direction with more and more things that started showing more and more signs. She would say, when I wake up tomorrow, I'll be a girl. And we were kind of like, oh.
Okay, so, hey, I think at that point, if she's old enough to say that kind of thing, it sounds like she's not 2 years old if she's forming full sentences like that. I mean, I don't know. Maybe my child development memory from taking child development classes is a little behind, but I would assume that this child is, and especially if they're at preschool and not daycare, I would assume they're more than 2 years old. I think for preschool you have to be a little older than that. I think you need to be like, I would at least 3 or 4 to go to preschool. I think I could be wrong. You know what? You know what? I'm just gonna Google it. This might be a stupid question, but I'm still gonna Google it. How old to go to preschool? Okay. Is too early for preschool? Oh, 2.5 to 3 years old. Okay. But this isn't a magic number for a child. Okay. So I was wrong. The child could... But if they're full... How old to form full sentences? By age 3, they're able to use sentences with 3 or more words. I am a girl. That's like 3 to 4 words. I'm a girl. That's 3 words. I am a girl. That's 4 words. Maybe it's a really 2-year-old though. Maybe it's a smart 2-year-old. It could be. This child could be 2, I guess. Okay, so I will admit my child development memory was a little lagging. But that's okay. That's why we have Google. That's why we have the internet now. That's why we can just look things up. Grateful for technology. Sometimes I hate it, like when it crashed the stream. Other times it's great, like when I can Google simple questions that are on my mind. But still, if they're old enough to understand, to some extent, the sentence, I'm a girl, like, you know, you're at least crossing into the possibly trans territory, I think. I mean, it's not a definite, this child is definitely trans and we have to put them on hormone blockers right away. No, that is not what I'm saying at all. But what I am saying is society should accept this child for how they wish to identify. So if this child says, I'm a girl, say, okay, we can start addressing you as a girl. And if the child changes their mind later and says, actually, I don't think I'm a girl anymore, they say, okay, we can start addressing you as a boy. Or if you think you're non-binary, maybe we can explore that. But yeah. Like, it's about respect.
Oh, okay, yeah. Ooh. And my husband and I would be like, we gotta figure this thing out. And so kind of for that final test, my husband decided, you know what, we're gonna figure this thing out. We're gonna tap into this and see what happens. So he said, you know, I'm gonna coach a t-ball team and I want her to be on it. And so I was like, all right, let's do it. Well, that didn't go over so well. She not only hated t-ball, she hated the uniform, she hated the hat. He found everything in the trash multiple times.
Well, if he hated t-ball, then he must be a girl. There's no other explanation.
Wow, you just completely ignored the entire rest of the video. Congratulations.
Obviously, that was the final, right? That's when they knew. That was the final test, because there's no way a child could not like t-ball unless they're a girl. Turns out all my kids are girls, because none of my kids like t-ball. Even the kids are...
Okay, bro, like... disingenuously taking this out of context just to make a stupid point is absolutely ridiculous. And if the people, you know, if people are, you know, people who are smart enough are obviously going to see right through that. But, like, people who aren't critically thinking about this are just say, yeah, you know, like, yeah, right, like, that's so stupid. But, like, if you're not listening to the rest of what this woman is saying and taking her completely out of context, if you're actually listening to her, like, you're gonna understand, okay, no, yeah, that makes sense. Maybe that's something they can explore in the future if they're still on that trajectory. But no, Matt Walsh absolutely hates trans people. And, you know, he wishes they did not exist. So, that's the point of view we're getting here. That's lovely.
Playing t-ball don't like t-ball. They're not interested in it. I didn't like t-ball either. Okay, well, I guess I'm a woman then. This is...
Yes, awesome. Embrace your femininity.
a weird way to find out. I never thought I'd find out this way. But, you know, that's not the worst thing in the world. That means I can't be criticized anymore.
What? Bro! Are you kidding me right now? Women are criticized way more than men are. Not that men aren't criticized. Everybody is criticized, especially if you're on the internet. But even in real life, everybody is criticized at some point. Like, I don't think there's a single person in the world who's never been criticized. Maybe like a newborn baby who was born 10 seconds ago. But most people in their lives have been criticized. And definitely women have been criticized.
You know, I have more victim points than I ever thought I did.
Points,
I have so much contempt for these people.
That.
The parents are the worst. She is an evil, despicable woman.
No, she's a great parent who's helping her child discover who they are.
We'll continue to say people like this should be in prison. Life in.
Oh my god, people like you should be in prison, dog. Like, you literally want trans people to not even exist on this freaking planet. Like, no.
Prison, you know. And I'm not satisfied with anything less than that. Life in a cage for this monstrous demon is what she is.
Oh my god.
Because she wanted her child to be trans. And,
no, that is not what she said at all. You didn't even listen to her.
Hell or high water, she was going to get it. Because she wants her kid to be a fashion accessory for her. And she will destroy her son's life to do it.
Really, bro?
That's what this is. I know the more charitable interpretation is that rather than being a monstrous demon, she's just the dumbest on the planet. Because that's the other...
Wait, I want to know what slur he used. I want to know what word he just bleeped out there. Like, what was the point of that? This is a pre-recorded show. Like, you could have just scripted that word out. But no, you had to call her something. I'm sure he called her a bitch, but, you know, that's just my guess. Something along those lines.
Potential, right? I mean, she's just so... Her and her useless, henpecked, emasculated, effeminate, ballless husband are two of the...
Okay, first of all, you're assuming she has a husband. She might not. Maybe she does. I don't know their family. I'm not going to make assumptions like this dude is. But... And then also assuming that he's just completely cucked to her. Completely whipped. Just making that assumption too right out the gate. For all you know, the dad completely disagrees with this style of parenting and is like, you know, has a similar mindset to you. But no, I guess you're just going to assume some things about him too. If he, you know, she even has a husband. Like I said, don't know this family.
Dumbest humans to ever live. That's the other possibility. Because you would have to be that stupid if your 1.5-year-old son shows interest in...
I thought he was 2. Now he's 1.5.
Shiny, pretty things. And so you start to think, maybe he's actually a girl. And then your little tiny son says, I'm going to wake up as a girl tomorrow. And their response is, well, I don't know. I don't know what to say about that. Here's what you say to that. Oh, no, you're not.
Oh my god, yeah, no, just completely tear your child's gender identity down because you have some fetishization with biological sex and gender being 100% of the time aligned with each other. Like, okay, bro.
Son, you'll be a boy tomorrow because you're a boy. End of conversation. That's it. That's all you got to say. So... Are they really so stupid that they don't understand that? Or are they evil and they are creating this identity crisis in their poor, helpless son?
Or are they allowing their child to explore outside of their gender norm, outside of their, you know, the gender norms assigned to their biological sex, and allow them to express themselves outside of that identity and being good parents and letting their child freely express themselves? That's a third option he doesn't seem to mention.
Because it will make them feel better and they can virtue signal and make TikTok videos like this. I guess it's up to interpretation. I can't see inside their hearts or their souls. I especially can't see inside their souls because I don't think they have them.
Wow.
But I think...
Well, you're right about that. I don't think anybody has a soul. So, that's one thing we agree on, at least. And if there are souls, this man especially does not have one.
Ultimately, you know, I just don't think anyone is that stupid. I just don't. I don't believe it. So we can end up...
Trust me, people can be pretty stupid, as we have seen just now.
On that fun note, as always...
Sunshine lollipop.
Okay, this is lame. Alright, well, now that we've watched that garbage, on to some more garbage, because what can I say? Just call me a raccoon, because I love reacting to some garbage. Alright, so this is an interesting one I thought of. If you can be transgender, can you be transracial? And I am somebody who is on the fence about this, to be honest. I personally I wouldn't care if someone wanted to be transracial. But I understand that when it comes to race, I come from a place of privilege myself. So I do like to look at the other side. And I was reading about this actually. When I saw this video, I read a little bit about this concept. And so the best argument I saw against transracialism versus transgenderism is that discrimination based on racial identity tends to be more generational, whereas discrimination based on gender is not intergenerational like that. So it is a lot more flexible. Gender is a lot more flexible in that sense than race is in a sense of a social construct. And then another argument I heard that was pretty, a little convincing for me too. While racial identities need to be affirmed more by their own communities, because it's in gender does not, and this is because race is intergenerational, so there is more of a community around race. And because there are people, like there's white people who grow up in the hood, and if they say the N-word around their friends, like their friends aren't going to get mad, they're accepted as black. There's also people of color growing up in white neighborhoods, becoming assimilated to the white culture and getting accepted as white within their communities. Candace Owen herself is a great example of this, in a sense, because, while she is not a white woman, she still does spread, white supremacist talking points. And this makes her accepted more by white supremacist communities. And she is part of that in-group, in a sense. Even though no one would call her white because of her skin color, she's still a part of that system. And she's still part of the oppressors. She's part of the oppression. And then the last thing, really, that I was looking at, it's a lot easier to define race within the social constructs than it is to define gender. Yeah. And so those are the main points I want to come in with before we even start this video. I'm curious what she has to say about it. And like I said, I'm on the fence, so I'm probably not going to go as hard on her as I usually would, but we'll see. We'll see what kind of stuff she's got to say.
Because everything is going swimmingly in Western civilization. We talk a lot about, if transgenderism is a thing and we get bleeped for saying that it might be a...
Oh, wow.
What, are we going to get...
it too. What's the point of this? They're just trying to look edgy, I guess.
Trouble if we talk about these people that are saying that they are transracial. Is that a thing yet? Because it should be one. I am a huge supporter of Richard Dolezal. I think that now...
Really? Interesting, because you don't... I would assume... Maybe I'm wrong. You can prove me wrong. I would assume you're not a fan of people being transgender. So this is an interesting take. Let's see where she goes with this.
That we exist in this climate of lies. We exist in this climate of lies, and you have teachers and the ecosystem. And
you know what it is, though? It's because Candace Owen wants to be white, I think. That's just my psychological armchair opinion. But,
big tech that are all pretending that people can pick their genders. But there is no reason that by that very same logic that people cannot also pick their races. What is stopping you from waking up one day and deciding that you are Chinese, Japanese, black, white on the basis of how you feel on the inside, right? It's a good question. It's a fair question. And by the way, if you're ever debating somebody that is pro-transgenderism, it's a good thing to ask them if they're also pro-transracialism.
And what if they say yes, Candace Owens? Then what do you do?
Bringing this topic up today because there's another Rachel Dolezal, except her name is Rachel Seidel, except she was going by Raquel Saraswati, and she had climbed the ranks. In fact, she was the chief, here we go again, Equity and Inclusion and Culture Officer, got positions, at a Quaker social justice group entitled American Friends Service Committee. Miss Saraswati identified as a gay Muslim, and she told colleagues that she was Latina.
Okay, she can still be gay and she could still be Muslim. Like, I don't see what that has to do with any of this.
And also of South Asian and Arab descent.
Okay. If she's saying that that is her descent, then that's just wrong. If she's associating with a certain race, that's more of a gray area because that's the social construct of it, right? Like, if I said I was from, like, Ecuadorian and South African descent, like, that just would not be true. But if I say, like, oh, I identify as black, I mean, I wouldn't say that, but if I did, if somebody else said that, let's say, or if Candace Owens said I identify as white, cool, I really would not care. But I also understand why other people would care. So,
of course, what ended up happening was that her mother spoke out and said, I don't know what's gotten into my daughter, but actually she's white. Actually, her mother said it much stronger than that, in much stronger terms. Her mother said, quote, that Rachel was as white as the driven snow. Mama wasn't playing around. Mom wasn't playing around. Mom was like, that's my girl, and she's white as...
That's the other thing, too, that I could see being an issue with the race thing. Because it is intergenerational, I could also see how it would cause family conflict. Because if you're identifying with a different race, you're kind of saying that you want to disassociate with the racial identity you were born with. And because that is an intergenerational thing, unlike gender, so let's compare the two. So with race, it's intergenerational because your whole family is of the same ethnic background, right? And there's certain ethnic backgrounds that identify with certain races. These molds and constructs have changed vastly over time, very vastly, if you just look into the history of it. But with gender is not intergenerational. Like, so most kids, if you're with your biological parents, both of them, you're with your mom and your dad most of the time. I mean, there's other outside situations, of course, but from a heteronormative perspective, you're with your mom and your dad. And if you say, and your gender isn't really associated with anything intergenerational because, you know, biologically have kids in the past before we invented new technology, obviously, but before this technology, to have a child, you know, you have to be with a man and a woman and they have to make a baby. So of course gender is not going to be intergenerational. And even if you have two fathers and your daughter, like, or a son, like, that's not intergenerational. There's just a 50-50 chance every time. So that's another main difference. But of course Candace Owens is not going to point that out, so I will point that out for you.
The driven snow. I don't know what's gotten into her. I don't know why she's pretending to be Arab. And she's done this for quite a long time, by the way. She has gotten away with this delusion. Are we allowed to say that? I don't know. Maybe we should be respecting her races. Since 2005, she just began claiming that she had Indian ancestry. And she then went on to celebrate the election of Kamala Harris as the first Indian American vice president because it was so nice for her to see an Indian vice president when she herself was an Indian, at least on the how she felt on the inside. In actuality, she was, as we mentioned, white.
On the other side of this argument, though, like, if you're presenting as a certain race, you're going to be treated as that race, whether you're doing so intentionally or not. So in this case, she is doing so intentionally, as you saw in the picture earlier. You know, making her skin look a little darker, wearing the hijab. Like, I mean, the hijab's not a racial thing usually, but, you know, like, I guess that's more Muslim, but, like, definitely changing, you know, the tone of her skin a little bit. You can tell in that picture, like, it was either makeup or something from a cheap tanning salon. I don't know. But yeah, I lost my train of thought there, but oh my god, these videos are making me lose brain cells. So, anyways,
as the driven snow, her mother. So yeah, she's being likened now to Rachel Dolezal, and she was similarly exposed. People are asking the question of how this could have taken place, and there are tons of conspiracy theories of wondering if she was a conservative plant. Nope, we don't claim Raquel Dolezal.
It doesn't work like that. If someone's belief system is going to be their belief system whether you claim them or not.
As people are now referring to her as. But she made it so far as sitting down with conservative hosts. In 2007, she sat down with Glenn Beck. So again, her mother debunked this. She has come out and said that she, the mother, is German and British, and that Rachel's father was a Calabrese Italian. Her mother says, quote, "She's chosen to live a lie, and I find that to be very, very sad." Now, in her public interfacing, Rachel told people that she was estranged from her family for reasons that she couldn't get into. Now
that I'm looking at this picture again, the first picture did look like she's wearing makeup, but this one just looks like the lighting's a little different, so I'll give her that.
Reasons are because she was just lying about her entire identity, and it would probably be awkward to go home to your white mother and try to tell her that actually you were an Arab. That just might be listen.
There's children who are adopted outside, and there's children who are adopted who are not the same race as their parents. So, like, how do you think? I mean, they still love their kid either way, you know.
I'm all for awkward discussions around the holiday, but you don't.
Yeah, I don't know.
Think of these sorts of discussions that are taking place. You think a little political banter, but when your child comes home and they're an entirely different race and they're wearing dark bronzer, as she started wearing bronzer darker and darker.
Okay, so she was wearing makeup. Okay.
Darker to match how she feels. Things could get pretty awkward. So, Raquel.
Okay, my view of this is that, like, in an ideal world, this should not even matter. Oh, what I was saying before. Okay. Yeah, so outside presentation, though. Sometimes it's intentional, like in this case. Other times, though, it's unintentional. Like, let's say you are a very light-skinned, but you are still black. But you're so light-skinned, people are going to treat you like you are white. Then you could argue that you're more white than black at that point because you are being treated with the privilege that a white person would be treated with. Or on the other side of it, like with my mom, for example, she was, her family, when she was a kid, right? She's full-blood Italian. So when she was a kid, she would play out with her siblings in the sun all day. Skin would get very tan. And then they wouldn't be allowed into restaurants because she was born before the Civil Rights Act. So, like, it is really a social construct that's more based off of the perception. And both of these are really gender as well. These are social constructs that are based off of your presentation and people treating you a certain way because of the way you present yourself. So, yeah, there's that.
Oh, we bid you well, because I think all you need to do is wait 5 years. Let's call it 5 years, and society will catch up, and they will begin condoning races according to how you feel, and not actually according to what you are. Lastly, you guys, we have to get into this Arizona teacher. She made an astounding argument. I talk about all the time that right now we are somehow in a custodial dispute over our children with the state. Like, suddenly, I don't know what happened, because it was very clear.
I mean, technically, it's always kind of been like that, depending on what your views are, but,
To me, when I was a child growing up in school, that my parents were my parents and my teachers were my teachers. And now you have teachers that believe that their students are their kids. Even their language has changed. Like,
I mean, they kind of are in a sense, because they're the ones who are maybe not a legal sense of custody, but in a colloquial sense, they are in custody of your kids for that amount of time. And, school isn't just about teaching, math equations and science, and, it's also about teaching social etiquette and how to conduct yourself socially. That is a huge part of what school is, and integrating that into teaching is just a better way to teach, because school should allow that's kind of what school is for. It really is more for teaching social conduction than it is for teaching facts in a book. School has always taught social conduct, how to conduct yourself socially, and and when I was in school, I was taught a lot of things that when I was older realized was just literal propaganda. So there's that. School has always taught different forms of propaganda, and not all propaganda is even bad, but the stuff I was taught was stuff that just wasn't true, so that is bad. But teaching your kids that gay people exist and that trans people exist, that is a part of conducting yourself socially, because you're going to be interacting with gay people and you're going to be interacting with trans people at some point in your life. So doing so respectfully is just the best way to socially conduct yourself, to have a more cohesive society. But whatever, I guess.
Our kids. These are my kids. It's no, these are your students. These are our kids, right? They belong to the parents. And
they're kids. They don't belong to anybody. I get, they're still your kids and you still have to raise them, but they don't belong to you. They're not an object.
You wonder, how can they get themselves
they're still people
into this headspace where, as a teacher, you feel it's acceptable to lie to parents about their children, right? This is going on, they're lying, they're calling children by a different name in the classroom and then lying to parents, saying,
what?
Oh, it's okay if you're confused about your gender. I'll call you Michael. I know your name is Sydney, but I'm going to call you Michael.
If a child asks to be called a nickname, we call them by the nickname. That's always been a thing. I don't go by my legal name. I go by Katie. That is a nickname. That is not my legal name, and I still go by it. That's not a very hard concept. And then, once you throw, something that's a different gender from what you thought this kid was, identifying, what you thought they were identifying as, throw gender into the mix, and all of a sudden, whoa, it's crazy for these people.
All day, because I'm your teacher and you're my kid. This is kind of the brainwashing. You have to assume it's happening at the university level, and then they go on to get these
It's not brainwashing, it's just respect.
Jobs. Well, in case you would like a further look into examining what has possessed these teachers, this brave Arizona teacher has spoken out. She spoke out against a proposed bill in Arizona for schools to ban books discussing sexuality and LGBTQ ideology, arguing that the purpose of public education is to teach what society needs. And she questioned...
That is what society does need to learn those things, but, whatever, just another disgusting bill out there.
Questioned the need for parental input in the curriculum whatsoever. Why on earth would parents have any input if I want to teach them about sex? If I want to teach your 5-year-old and your 6-year-old about sex, why?
That's literally not happening anywhere. Jesus.
Do parents need input? She then took it a step further to explain her reasoning. Listen to her in her own words.
I have a master's degree because when I got certified, I was told I had to have a master's degree to be an Arizona certified teacher. We all have advanced degrees. What do the parents have? Are we vetting the backgrounds of our parents? Are we allowing the parents to choose the curriculum and the books that our children are going to read?
Well, we are now.
I think that it's a mistake.
We shouldn't be.
And I'm just speaking from the heart. The one line that I love is we must remember that the purpose of public education is not to teach only what parents want their children to be taught. It is to teach them what society needs them to be taught.
You heard it, you guys. What do you have? What do you have? She has an advanced degree. I mean, what kind of...
In education! Oh my God! She has an advanced degree literally in education, so she understands education better than a parent who does not have education in education. Why is that such a hard concept? Oh yeah, because, let's see. Does she have an education? She went to University of Rhode Island and got an undergrad there. Okay. So she has an education too. What does she have an education in? In journalism. Okay. So, Candace Owens, you have an undergraduate in journalism. And yet, I don't know. Like, do you understand journalism? Do you think you understand journalism better than someone who does not have a degree in journalism and no experience doing journalism? Or do you just think you wasted all your money on your education and it was worthless and didn't get you anywhere?
What ordains you? What are you, you're the mom? The dad? Yeah, what do you have? Because I have an advanced degree, and my advanced degree tells me that your kid needs to learn about penises and vaginas and transgenderism when...
Whoa, okay. I mean, first of all, kids should understand their own genitals, like, at 5 or 6. Maybe not in a sexual sense, but, you know, just to understand how they work. Like, you should at least understand that, you know, some people have penises and some people have vaginas. Like, you know, that's not a very... whatever. And understanding, like, your own genitals and, like, understanding that, you know, other people should not touch them is a great way to prevent ongoing abuse of children in that sense. So, yeah, just saying.
And they are in kindergarten. And if you have an issue with that, you need to examine yourself and realize that this is public education and we decide what society needs. And right now, what society needs...
That's always been how public education works. Oh my God.
...is children that are sexualized before they even get to the 3rd grade. So we've got to keep these books in the library because we have the advanced degrees. And if you don't follow her logic, it's because you shouldn't. It's because... she is a monster. She doesn't realize she's a monster. Right?
Oh my God.
This is what happens.
Yeah, she's a monster.
Too long. They actually believe that having a degree gives them all sorts of authority, right?
It's not about having authority. It's about having expertise. Okay? Having an education and an educational background and educational experience in education, yes, it does give you a better standing of education than a parent who does not have any of those things. Yes. It's not about authority. It's about expertise. And it's about knowing your field.
And the authority that they want is over your household. This is why we have to raise our children to think independently. It is why I am against the public education initiatives. I speak openly about the fact...
Oh, really? So you're against the book bans, too? The book bans that ban LGBTQ books? Because I'm there with you.
That I think that the Department of Education needs to be abolished. Because it is in the hands of the government, and that hand of the government...
So how are we going to regulate... We're just not going to regulate our education system then? So, like, each individual school can just teach literally whatever they want? That's great. Yeah, that'll end well.
Wishes to reach into your households and to remove all power from mom and dad. Essentially, it seeks full, total omnipotence. And we have to stop that. All right, guys, you know how this works. The next portion of the show is going to be available exclusively on Daily Wire.
Oh, don't care. Not paying. Don't care. All right, so that was that stupid video. We got one more stupid video, and then we're done. So this is Hannity. This is Fox News. This is deadly serious. Okay.
What a great crowd. We're back in New York. There are a few conservatives, a few normal people in New York City. They're all in this room. That's it. Anyway, thank you for being with us. Busy news night this Friday.
Not to hate or anything, but damn, his hair got really white since the last time I watched this dude. He's got one black streak. He got the salt and pepper look going. I can respect it, but it's a lot more white than it used to be for sure. Not insulting the man, just an observation.
Friday, and not for, by the way, for Joe Biden. He's back in Delaware for another weekend of rest and relaxation. We have full coverage of his latest cognitive malfunction. It was pretty bad. That's coming up tonight. Also, England's own Piers Morgan will weigh in on Meghan and Harry. Right?
Oh, I want to watch that.
Couple reportedly
I do want to watch the new South
They are struggling to cope with a cartoon that made fun of them. These are people that say they want privacy, but they show up on Oprah, on Netflix, they write books. They don't want privacy.
It's like these people, none of them understand consent. It's just consistent. Yes. People, when they go onto shows specifically, yes, they do want the limelight in those situations, of course. But that doesn't mean that they want the limelight when they're not doing those things. Like, that doesn't mean they want to be invaded when they're trying to have private time with themselves. Like, paparazzi are huge scum. Huge scum. I just hate the idea of paparazzi. You know, I've never been into the whole, like, trying to catch celebrities, you know, like, when they're in their houses or whatever the hell, like, or when they're just on the sidewalk in their neighborhood, like, you know, it's such an invasion of privacy, and I just think it's gross.
They want money. They're just lying to us. Anyway, first we begin tonight with something really deadly serious, and America...
Oh, God, he's got the shoes on the telephone pole. No. This is going to be about crime rates, guys. Just a heads up. No. I can't. The shoes, no. On the wires. Oh, my God.
Is now suffering from what is a severe violence and murder crisis. Now, in fact, countrywide murder rate is now at the highest point.
Let's see. Rate of homicide in U.S. 30 years. Because that's what? That's about a 10-year. And this is posted 22 hours ago, but this information is from 2020. So we don't even know what's happened in the last 2 years with it. So let's see what we find. Interesting. This isn't homicide, but this is violent crime. This is the one I like to look at. So, okay. Violent crime from 1990 to 2021. Yeah, it's such a small dip in the grand scheme of things, but they make it out to be such this huge thing. Okay, so where is it? I just want to see the graph. Oh my God, I don't care about the article. Okay, I guess we're gonna have to look at it really tiny over here. So from the 80s was up, dipped down, went back up. It really spiked in 2020 due to COVID, of course. But it's still not reaching the tipping point. It is getting a lot higher, I will say. But that is a huge spike. However, in the grand scheme of things, it is not higher than it's like ever been or anything. But it is a problem that needs to be. Here, murder surge in America, but still, this makes it look even smaller. So from like, what, it's about the same as 1975. Which, for people who were alive in 1975, you're as safe now as you were then, so this isn't like unprecedented or anything. It is a problem, don't get me wrong. It is a problem, but they make it out to be a bigger problem than it is, and they like to blame things that aren't at fault. So let's see what he blames
more than 20 years, and it's going higher, it seems, every day, with another 4.3% increase in 2021 alone. Now, of course, You won't see any of these statistics on other networks because they hide. For example,
we just saw one from CNN, so that's a lie.
2020, we had 574 riots, and they refused to call riots riots. We had thousands of it.
What? No, they were like a couple of riots and mostly peaceful protests. I'm assuming he's talking about the Black Lives Matter protests.
Injured cops, billions in property damage, and of course we had dozens of dead Americans, but they weren't riots.
Wait, what? Did the BLM riots kill anyone? Okay. We just gotta double check the facts sometimes, because they're not always 100% honest. The Guardian, New York Times. So the claim, more black people have died in Floyd aftermath than in police shootings in 2019. So the deaths that have occurred during protests likely unknown. Reports by different media outlets also have varying numbers. One article says 13 reported deaths and 9 of the people identified in the article were black. There have been at least 19 reported deaths that have happened during the protests. Okay.
According to the left.
We just gotta fact check them sometimes, guys.
You won't hear about it from Democrats. They love to politicize so-called gun violence. Only when it's politically convenient will they talk about it.
Wait, I don't think they died from gun violence, did they? I guess I don't know. I would have to look into it a little bit deeper, but
now that's because these murders are
skeptical.
Devastating, and by the way, often happening in Democratic-run cities and towns because of Democratic policies and a Democratic narrative.
No, it's just because there's more people there, and there's also more of a wealth disparity in these places a lot of the time.
Defunding, dismantling the police, vilifying the police, zero bail laws.
I think the police vilify themselves, but you know.
Releasing violent felons from prison, lax prosecution.
I mean, yeah, we're not going to keep every single violent felon in prison for life. Like, that's ridiculous. Like, you got into a scuffle outside of a bar, and like, all of a sudden you're spending your life in prison for throwing one punch to somebody's face. Like, I mean, don't do that. That's not a good thing to do, but come on, like, they gotta be released eventually. Like, first of all, that's just a ridiculous punishment. Second of all, our system wouldn't even be able to support that. Our prison, and of course these people want the prison industrial complex to keep growing, so they'd probably be in favor of that, but like, we can't just put everybody in prison for life. Like, people got to be released eventually. That's why we need to reform our prison systems and make them rehabilitative. Because these people are going to be released eventually, and we don't want them to commit more crimes. That's kind of the point.
And now, predictably, every night, city streets all around the country are lined with bodies. So the question is, how many more lives are Democrats willing to sacrifice for a narrative that is false? How long will they cling to defund, dismantle, and no bail laws?
Those laws are gonna, oh my God. Some of the stuff that helps decrease crime.
For example, recently in New York City,
like statistically,
the DA dropped murder charges against the guy accused of stabbing a person to death over stolen shrimp.
Wait, but why? I would need to look more into that case.
And then immediately released this guy from prison. And now he's only being charged with first-degree assault. Now, meanwhile, out in Los Angeles, it's not much better. The DA out there suspended a prosecutor for misgendering a child molester charged with murder.
Okay, I mean, so this is a tricky one, but the thing is, like, just because someone is an awful, terrible person, like, it doesn't mean, especially in a courtroom, like, a courtroom, you definitely need to give, like, everybody the respect, because they're not even convicted yet. Even if they did do it, like, you know, even if they probably did do it, they're still not convicted yet. And, like, even if they are convicted, like, you can still, like, you can treat people as human. Like, that is the biggest part of, you know, solving the crime issue, is treating criminals as humans. Because the less you treat criminals like humans, the more they're going to engage in antisocial behavior, i.e. crime. So, yes, we do need to show criminals respect, as awful as some of these people are. And a lot of them aren't even awful people. Most of these people are just in here and drug jet. No, not this person. This person sounds pretty awful. But that doesn't mean that we still don't treat them as human. You know, as satisfying as it is to not treat them as human, that's not going to solve the crime problem. So.
Murder who claims to now be a trans woman. Why should that be a factor? If you commit murder, you should be charged with murder. Now, she purportedly...
They didn't say they didn't charge him with murder, though. Like, they just suspended the prosecutor. And they probably got a new prosecutor.
Beat a man to death in the woods. But according to the media mob, the real threat to America, well, that would be Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, because he allowed his state to execute a violent criminal who murdered 2 people. In fact...
Yeah, we shouldn't be executing people either. For one, it is way more expensive to execute someone than it is to imprison them for life. Why is that the case? I don't know why that's the case, but it is the case either way, whether I understand it or not. And number 2, it's just not ethical. Like, I don't think it's ethical to kill someone just because they killed somebody else. Like, an eye for an eye is not how the law should work. Like, oh, so, like, you sexually assaulted 20 people, like, you're going to be sexually assaulted 20 times now. Like, no. Like, rehabilitative justice is the best way to prevent crime. But these people don't care because they want the private prison systems to keep making more money. It's all about the money, folks.
Many in the media mob enthusiastically promoted the murderer's final statement. Quote, "I know I hurt people when I was young. I really messed up. But I know Ron DeSantis has done a lot worse."
Owned. Yes. Alright. Never thought I'd be on the side of the murderer. No. I mean, I'm really on it, you know. This guy sounds like he's reformed a little bit, too. So, like, I'm a little more on his side for that reason as well. Ron DeSantis is nowhere near reformed, and if he becomes president, then oh my god, I'm trapped in this country, and I'm screwed. So, let's hope that doesn't happen. But, you know, especially with Joe Biden not going to Ohio before he went to Ukraine, like, yeah, things are looking rough right now.
I doubt he killed people. Now, keep in mind, Florida's crime rate...
We don't know, because in a sense, he probably will, if he hasn't already, killed not just people, but children. Children who are trans, children who are gay, and don't have any examples in their life of other people who are this way. So they aren't as able to engage in the communities because these communities become more closed off as society makes them close themselves off. And what do these children do when they're lonely and feel nobody understands them? Well, there's a lot of unaliving going on. There's a lot of suicides. And that's not good. So in a sense, you know, Ron DeSantis and his lawmaking will, if it hasn't already, you know, lead to similar outcomes to the murderer. So, just saying.
Has dropped to a 50-year low, with murder down 14%. And of course, no state is immune from any crime. But take a look at your screen. Look at Flagler County, Florida. A 6'6", 270-pound high school student.
What?
Look at this. Viciously beating a teacher's assistant, striking her 15 times, knocking her unconscious. And in Orange County, a violent gang member named Keith Moses, he is accused of murdering 3 people according...
I just gotta say, this dude looks zooted. He looks zooted out of his mind.
According to reports, quote, Moses, armed with a Glock 40, allegedly fatally shot a woman found around 11 a.m., returned to the scene hours later, and opened fire on a TV reporter and a photojournalist before entering a home and shooting yet another woman and her 9-year-old daughter. But when Moses was arrested, he whined and he cried and he accused the police of being too rough. Take a look. Get on your face. Get on your face.
Oh, whoa. I mean, you don't just push him over. You could have slowly kind of just let him go down. You didn't have to fucking push him like that. Jesus. I mean, I understand he's a murderer and probably, you know, whether it's just because he's not a good person or more likely because of his socioeconomic status, he's probably trying to make some money and form a community with some people. Form some kind of community so he could feel included in something. Like, those circumstances are a little different. That doesn't excuse what he did, of course, but you know, that doesn't mean you gotta push this dude on the ground just because you want to feel like a macho man. Like, come on. Like, we still gotta treat people as people even when they're terrible. Like, that's just, I'm sorry, that's just how you prevent more, like, that's gonna help prevent more crime if you actually treat criminals like people.
Relax.
Okay, now he's just freaking out though. Now the dude's just freaking out.
Secure that whole area. I can't. They're not killing him, they're arresting him, which is what their job is. Now, the guy's accused of murdering a 9-year-old little girl and a local reporter and another woman. At least.
If he really couldn't breathe, though, then that's terrible. I don't know if he was just saying that to be dramatic or if he actually could not breathe. But if he actually could not breathe, then that is not how we should be treating people when we're arresting them, even for murder.
East in Florida, if he's convicted, he will never see the light of day outside of prison ever again. That's what every state needs to adopt. Everybody seems to agree. Now, meanwhile, in Texas, this newly released video is going viral. This shows a good Samaritan, somebody risking his own life, chasing down a drunk driver who attempted to run from the scene of a crash that killed a Texas police officer. Look at this heroism.
Oh.
You kill somebody, you mother. You kill somebody. Stay right there. You stay right there, mother.
I don't want to mess with that guy.
Okay.
Anyway, but he did the right.
I mean, that's good. That's a good thing to do, I guess.
Now, clearly.
I mean, as much as I hate cops, we shouldn't be out there trying to kill them either, you know.
Law and order is something that Americans value, and for good reason, because without safety, life becomes very difficult when you have woke DAs refusing to prosecute even violent criminals and recommending lenient sentences in the name of, quote, social justice.
I mean, my personal opinion, I don't think anyone should really get a life sentence if they can reform. I think we should be basing our sentencing more off of rehabilitation and reform than we should base it off of just some arbitrary feeling we have or some arbitrary feeling of comeuppance, you know. But hey, that's just me. So what
They are hurting their own community, so what can be done? Well, out in Missouri, the Attorney General is now working to fire a St. Louis Circuit Attorney named Kim Gardner. Now, keep in mind, St. Louis is one of the most dangerous cities on earth, and in return, Gardner is now playing the race card. Take a look at this.
While it is true my office could have done more, to say we did nothing is only disingenuous, but is willfully ignorant of the reality of our court system. We're going to fight very hard for justice in spite of the vitriol, the hate, the racist attacks, the known manipulation of the court procedures to make sure our office fails.
Hey, Sean Hannity here.
So I don't know anything about that case. And he didn't even say anything about it. He just showed the clip, so. Yeah. I guess that's it for today. Yeah, we're making some changes to our channel right now, just to let you guys know. So we might not have some videos on our YouTube channel for a little while. We'll try to do lives when we can. They'll probably be on Saturdays, but follow us just in case we decide to stream on a different day, or if you want to know when we do stream on different Saturdays, or on different days in general. But yeah, yeah. So good night, everybody, or good morning. Don't know where you are.